Hi, I'm Amanda McCoy Flanagan.
And I'm Ginny Oliva Smith. Welcome to Soul Rising.
On this podcast, you will hear honest, off-the-cuff, vulnerable conversations about all things love, loss, and connection.
Deep and meaningful conversations sure to pull at your heartstrings and enlighten your soul.
Again, welcome. It's time to let your soul rise. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Soul Rising podcast. This is season 2, episode 4. And today with Ginny and I, we have the wonderful Toks Aruoture from the other side of the pond joining us from the UK. Toks is the host of her own show, her podcast called Living Inside Out. And Ginny and I have been lucky enough to be on her show last summer. It was wonderful. So, Toks, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit and then we'll take it from there?
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies, for having me. It's nice to be interviewed by you on the other side this time.
So glad to have you.
You are amazing. So yes, I am a businesswoman. I'm a nursery interior designer and I own the Baby Cot Shop in Chelsea, London, which is a luxury baby and children's furniture brand and studio and interior design service. In addition to that, I record Living Inside Out with Toks, which is a podcast on mindset and entrepreneurship and faith. And then I've got my other life as mom to 4 children, 4 boys, and I'm also married.
That is so much that you have happening all at once. So to be balancing all of that and sharing your experience with it on your wonderful podcast, we're so grateful for that. And that we get a little peek into your world and get to share that time and space with you and that you are here with us in our space today.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited.
When we were scheduling our show, I had asked, is there anything that you are particularly focused on right now that you've been talking about to your audience and thinking about and whatever's going on deep within you? And it was quite interesting what you came back to me with about the idea, if I have this correct, of pretty much the grand plan that's out there for all of us and the goodness and how everything ultimately will always be okay, but we get caught up in the sort of the pitfalls or the not being able to see that end in sight, right? Nobody's ever going to be able to see that. And sometimes maybe that like freaks us out. And then we get caught up on the stumbling blocks along the way that we think are stumbling blocks or that are hurting us or whatever, but really are leading us to that highest good.
Absolutely.
Right?
You know, you summarized it so well. I actually feel encouraged hearing it back from you. And what's so interesting is that when you had asked what we were going to have a conversation about or what I was learning in that time, I was so certain that by the time this day came, I will have a new lesson, like I would have something new. But what's interesting is it's still the same. And I'm learning, and I've named the season of my life Sight. It's all about seeing. And seeing. So not seeing, not relying on what we can see physically, but relying on the bigger vision, as Amanda said, and trusting that even though we cannot physically see components of it, it is still very real. It's still very achievable. I had a young lady send me a message this afternoon and she'd watched my recently published TED Talk. And she said, are you telling me?
Loved it. By the way, congratulations on that.
Yes, congratulations on that.
So amazing. Sorry to interrupt, but I was very excited to watch.
Thank you. And she said to me, are you telling me that the dreams I have and I have given up on and what I really wanted, despite the fact that nothing looks like it's ever going to happen, are you telling me that I can still try? And are you saying to me that it's going to happen? And I said to her that I'm learning that what we have been calling failure is actually just a temporal defeat. And what we call the end is actually a hiccup. So sometimes it's about language, it's about the vocabulary we're using, and it's about the words the story we're telling ourselves in our minds. And I thought about all the times that I had given up and I really shouldn't have given up. I mean, I felt like I didn't have maybe the strength to carry on. And sometimes that's real. If you don't have the inner strength, you might need support from outside. There were times I felt I didn't have the strength to carry on. There were times I felt that all of the evidence surrounding me pointed to failure, like it's over, it's the end, it's done. And there is no point hoping for, the vision, or I may have redefined my vision as fantasy. It's not real. It's just fantasy. But I truly believe now that if only we can change the language and change the words that we're saying to ourselves, change the story we're telling ourselves, and stop naming failure as the end, but instead naming it as a hiccup, a distraction, a disruption, anything but the end, that we can continue to carry on.
I love that you use the word disruption. I pick tarot cards often for myself. And around the new year, I did a spread. I did an overall energy. And then I did for the first third of the year, and then the middle third of the year. And so not like a past, present, future. I did more of like, okay, so what's going to happen in the first, middle and the end. Mm-hmm. And in the middle was the card disruption. Mm-hmm. And the disruption card for this deck that I use, it's called the Psychic Tarot by John Holland. It's one of the decks that I use. It signifies the tower in typical tarot,
which is kind of death.
Means it's right. It comes. I think it might come right before or right after death, but it's this crumbling.
Yeah,
it's falling down,
being destroyed. Yeah, everything coming down to the base foundation.
And of course, my first instinct is like, shit, like no, But ultimately, what comes after the tower falls is this rebirth, this spiritual awakening, which I've experienced already in my life a bunch of times. That whole falling away. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a situation. It could just be my mindset, my thoughts, how I feel, this lifetime story that I've told myself. And a bunch of those have fallen away over the years. But there might be something else. I feel like there's going to be something else, a whole shift. A whole shift in the way that I viewed something is going to now fall in order for something new to be built.
It reminds me of a verse that says that except a corn of wheat, I think it says, falls to the ground and die, it remains, nothing can come out of it. And when you were talking about destruction and everything falling down, I was thinking about seeds, like corn, for example, wheat. It's going to remain a seed unless it ruptures, the whole thing ruptures. It cannot possibly grow unless the skin ruptures and everything that's on the inside comes out and it presses through. And a lot of pain and a lot of challenges that a seed goes through just to become a tree. So disruption and destruction are not always negative. Sometimes it's needed and it's required for newness to come forth. So that's very interesting.
Wow, that was beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, Amanda had shared with me that what it was that you wanted to talk about, and it was mind blowing to me because it's extremely relevant. It tends to be relevant, right? This is life. We go through these points in the second that we think we have it all figured out, or we think we have the destination figured out. Right. Life has a way of just almost out from underneath us. At times it feels like these earthquakes that we have, and everything around us has to shift and change. And it is out of our control. It's out of our hands a lot of times. And I think that might be part of the fear or the challenge, or figuring out how to just ride that shaking wave, right? Of, okay, this is out of my hands right now. It doesn't necessarily mean that all of it has to fail and be gone or be complete or done. And also honoring the part where you can be sad about some of it, or you can honor that feeling of it, but knowing I don't have to mourn this though, because it doesn't necessarily have to be the end. I'm experiencing a pretty fair share amount of that. I had to do a quick pivot, and I had to jump back into work full time, like work. And as you know, I know we've talked before with you about the furniture and everything that you do. Massive passion for me. Felt for the period of time that I'd done this, I felt in my cadence. I felt like in my purpose. Yeah. And, having just the reality of money still makes our world go round, and it's what keeps the roof over our head, and it's what pays the bills. And I've had a very quick kind of situation for my own family's sake, where it was like, okay, well, we've got all these rising prices. My husband's in education and the money. And again, the business, I didn't even have the business going 6 months, 7 months. And I'm not closing everything down, right? But the level of what that's been like has been raw for me. It has been angering. It has been frustrating. It has been sad. It has been heartbreaking. Like, you just didn't see it coming, first of all. And also, it's taken me a while to turn around, let go, and let the river take me where it needs to. Because in my mind, I was like, no, I felt that. I feel it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And this is my purpose. And I felt it within me. So to have the outside circumstances come into a way where it's like,
I get you.
Yes. And oh my gosh. But in the process of all this, knowing that this is what you wanted to talk about today, because I'm inside of that place that you're talking about. And I love your connection to seeds, because I remember the last time that we discussed seeds and just everything about the process of them breaking open. And that's part of what I did on New Year's Eve. My family and I have a tradition that we make a list. So the kids make a list, my husband, myself, of the things we want to let go of. We literally burn it. We use our own breath to like burn it away. And then we write a list for 24, or the year that's coming, the things we're grateful for. And we plant it in a jar with soil and seeds.
Oh, I love that.
And so everything you're saying, it's all, I mean, I can't, aside from that, I was beyond excited. We both were to see you today. I can't tell you how relevant and how tapped in you are.
I feel like I'm in a similar season as well with you. And, you know, when it comes to the business, I had a meeting this morning with a lady, and I was saying to her how my thing in this season is recognizing the mindsets that have been tripping me up. You know, now there are mindsets that blind us to possibilities, but there are mindsets that actually sabotage our opportunities. And I'm in a season where I'm recognizing the ones that sabotage my opportunities. And one of them is self-consciousness. So now I realized that many of my decisions over time have been filtered by the mindset of self-consciousness. How do I look? What do they think of me? What will they think of me? How am I appearing to people? And it's self-preservation, wanting to preserve the outer shell of that seed, isn't it? Like not wanting to be hurt, you know, or to be embarrassed or to be ashamed or what have you. And all of my energy, I realized, rather than me going towards building and creating, I was using it to keep myself safe. So for example, back to the TED Talk, that I was like, oh, I really want to share this with people. But then I haven't shared it with my Baby Cot Shop community. I handpicked about 3 or 4 clients of mine, and I sent it to them. And it took everything in me just to send a WhatsApp message and say, hey, I did it. It's very strange, but I figured out the reason why. And it's because years ago, when I lost my business, when we lived in Atlanta, it must have affected me so much that I created 2 versions of myself. I've got Toks, the Toks you guys know, which I think is the real me. And I've got Toks, the owner of the Baby Cot Shop. And I must have done that because I didn't want to ever experience the pain of losing a business or closing a business or what have you. So when you talked about having to go back to work, I really feel that pain, like I do. I felt it so much that it led me to create a version of me that deals with the business, so that if anything ever happened, this other real Toks will not be affected. But anything that is birthed out of fear cannot grow healthily, you know? And for me, that's
so true.
So now I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, I'm almost ready. I'm definitely going to send a message out to all of my Baby Cot Shop people. If you look at both platforms, the Baby Cot Shop and my own Instagram, you wouldn't even know that I have anything to do with that business because it's so different.
Right.
You know, I feel very comfortable talking about mindset and my faith and my life and just laughing and on my personal one, but on the business one, there's just been this blockage. Like I feel as though they want somebody else. They don't want me.
It makes so much sense. And it's, again, like you're saying, if there's that part where that's that seed needing to rupture and needing to come through, if we are still just hanging on to it, it's like it keeps it internalized. And even though that pain or the fear of letting it break through that skin, part of it is just releasing our expectation. But you're right, that level of figuring out, well, where am I investing my energy and what imprint am I going to leave on the world? And is it this version of me that's here with you guys, that's open and free and, able to talk about everything that I feel? Or is it this other side of like, yeah, but I'm also the person who is one half of a marriage, who also has to bring in finances, who also has to work in a business that I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, I was the most passionate about this, but is in providing me this opportunity to expand more and eliminate some of those financial pieces. But that's a hard thing when you're asking yourself, what part of this, is this not the genuine me? Is this not the authentic me? And how much of me do I allow into that space? And how much do I still keep for me to be in like this environment with you guys where we're able to come here and share and create and
well, the thing, Bibi, as well. Also, sorry to cut in because I know.
No, you're good. I'm doing the same thing. Say it, please.
The thing is
I'm just glad it's not me this time. It's usually me.
Oh, but
you guys go. Go.
Is also knowing for sure the season you're in does not define the season you'll always be in. So rather than see it as, okay, well, so now I've had to close that and I've had to go back to work. It's a season. And seasons come and seasons go. I really believe that when you were describing about, you feeling so alive when you're working, doing the furniture, I get that. And honestly, I think in a perfect world, we should not be touching anything that give us life and joy, But I think that the season you're it's a pause. You've had the introduction to that business. And season where you're having to work outside the home, it's going to be a tool that will help you pick the business up again later. And you're not going to be starting where you left off because between now and then you're growing. So the business may not necessarily be going and growing and growing, but the business owner is growing so that when you pick it up again in the future, when things pick up financially, really also be open to how it all comes together. Don't be rigid in your planning and just trust that it will happen because that's what gives you joy. That's what you're supposed to do. And the season is a tool to make sure it happens later as well.
Couldn't have said it better. And also aside from the fact that I had this opportunity and where I landed working wise, if I could handpick a situation that if it was like I had to go back to work and I had to work in an environment and with a team of people, I could not be in a better situation with the people that I'm around, the team that I'm involved with, and the timing of all of it. It worked out so well for them. It works out super well for me. And I had shared with Amanda, I know we both talked to you a little bit about like our sobriety journeys. Anytime we're all in a room together, you're with other people that have struggled through that. There's a passion in that for me too. I know it 100% with Amanda. She's had a deep passion for helping other people in that space. And something that kind of came along as a secondary thing, and I think I shared this with you, Amanda, maybe or maybe not, but talking about things working out as they should no matter what, I step into this environment and into this business world and in an environment of people that all of a sudden me just being who I am and in my experience up to this point, I have had probably 3 or 4 people that have very seriously pulled me aside and said, hey, somebody told me you don't drink. And I'm like, yeah, I don't. Or people who've known me from my past. Some of these people I used to drink, happy hours forever with. And them having this opportunity to be around a group of people that are knew me at that time and now see me and they're like, you haven't had a drink in 7 years. And I say, yes. And I've had 3 people who were very, very much in a place where they're like, I've been trying to stop and I didn't know what to do. And I didn't think you could be in this industry and not drink. Right. So I've been letting that settle in too, because with what you're saying, we're meant to be exactly where we are when we're there. And I was able to let go. And I didn't close a business down entirely. Like I just had to really, I had to get my ego in check too, because I was all in. I walked away from the corporate world and like I've done all these things and I put it out there because I just fully believed, and I still do. But it was a big ego check too, of like realizing like, whoa, dude, you are really up in your ego right now, because it was a really tough pill to swallow, that it was like, or look, you couldn't do this in my mind. You couldn't make this work. Like that was a strange, and it still is, right? I'm still in it. I'm still dealing with that. But as the days pass and as I'm getting to learn this brand new side of another business, I keep being gifted all these amazing things that don't have to do with, oh, you had to walk away from your furniture to jump into this. They have to do with, oh, you get to be in this new environment. You get to be a lighthouse for some people who thought that it was impossible to be doing what we do and not be intoxicated itself. And if I had just stayed in that place of resentment and heartbreak about, oh, this chapter's ending, I wouldn't be seeing that. And it's been a stark reminder for me, because I wanted to sit in my little pity party for like a while. I mean, you know, I'm like, I just want to sit here and be mad and frustrated and angry, because it always has to be me that makes the sacrifices, because I can do that sometimes.
It's all part of the process, you know, and you're navigating it, and it doesn't have to be pleasant for you to be seen as powerful and handling it well. Frustration is a natural human emotion. Ego is part of who we are. And the fact that you recognize where your ego is trying to take over, I think that's such a tremendous blessing, because a lot of people don't, or should I say sometimes we don't, because I know that there are times I don't. I don't know if, Amanda, how you feel. How does your ego drives you?
Oh yeah, I'm so aware that I said to myself last week, you better slow your roll, girlfriend, or else somebody's going to check you real hard. Yeah, it's all about humility. I think it all goes back to humility. And I think humility is a really major principle in this conversation of saying, you know what, I don't know exactly the little paths and detours and the river, you know, and the rocks I'm going to hit and all this kind of stuff, and where I'm going to go under for a minute. I don't know that those things are not exactly how they're supposed to be. They are. I believe they are.
Yeah.
So for me to sit here and say that's not supposed to happen, and this is not supposed to happen, and it's not supposed to be this way, that's my ego speaking.
Sure.
So I think humility is a big piece of this, and staying on that pathway towards the best for us. And I know humility is a big spiritual principle. And like you said, I don't think anything good is ever going to come to me if I'm not maintaining that in my sight. I love how you started talking about this time of your life is about sight, and being able to see or really not see. You know, we're not going to be able to see all of it. And to honor, I was thinking about like honoring all of the feelings and stuff that come up, and the different emotions that come up when we hit those stumbling blocks, when our ego is put in check, and not just minimizing and saying, well, I know it's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay, right? Like that I can sort of use as like a denial mechanism for me to not feel what I need to feel on my journey toward my highest self, really, the highest good that I can do out in the world. So how do you get yourself back into that space? Like when your head starts going, your mindset starts going, and all these thoughts of fear and expectation and feeling let down and feeling hurt. What do you use? What kind of tools or like mantras can you give us to get us through those times, those hard times?
My number one is journaling. That's my number one tool.
Journaling.
Yeah. I just grab a pen and my notebook. My journal is my sacred space. I've got it right here with me. And depending on how intense it is, because, you know, you can always tell when it's coming, can't you? Like you can tell, it's almost like you can see the unwelcome guest coming towards you from a distance.
Yes.
And you can feel like things are changing. Like, okay, I can feel slight anxiety. And I also know that if I don't deal with it there and then it's going to blow up. So I had some anxiety yesterday, which I thought I had dealt with yesterday until I woke up this morning feeling very anxious. I did a lot of writing yesterday. I didn't do any this morning. And so when it got to a point where I felt like it was drowning me, I just grabbed my journal and I started writing everything on my mind. So the first thing I do is I do a brain dump of everything on my mind. What's annoying me? What's irritating me? What's worrying me? What am I afraid of in this moment? And I write everything. And then I look at the list and I decide, now, which of these is an assumption and which of it is fact? What am I making assumptions over and getting anxious over when it hasn't even happened? And so I cross it out, or I write next to it, well, you're just imagining this, or if this happens, then you'll do that. If it's a fear of the future, then I write, this is what you'll do if that were to happen. And another thing I do sometimes is what is true now? What's true now? And right now, I've got a roof over my head. Right now, my children are healthy. Right now, my marriage is intact. Right now, I've got food to eat. Right now, I don't have bailiffs knocking on my door, or I'm not about to lose part of me. Right now, I don't have a specialist appointment with a consultant in the hospital. I don't have a specialist clinic I have to attend. And so I write what's true for me now and the things I have now. And it helps me to take my eyes off what I want but don't have, or what I think I need but I'm lacking. And I focus on the things I have. And then I do gratitude. Like, I'm really thankful for what I have now. I'm thankful. Like this morning, I was sitting in the sitting room and I sat on the carpet. I love sitting on the floor. So I sat on the carpet and I'm staring in front of me, and I've got our wall clock, and I was looking at the clock. It's a copper colored metal wired clock. And I was looking at it and I said, thank you, God, that I can see dimension, that I can tell that is a clock on the wall and not the picture of a clock. Because I remember a movie I watched, and I think it was Good Will Hunting. I'm not 100% sure. I can't quite, years and years ago, where a guy who was visually impaired or even just completely blind was given this experimental treatment, and he actually began to see. But they realized that he couldn't tell the difference between an apple and the picture of an apple because he couldn't see dimension. And I always remember that. And I think I can see dimension and I can see color, And so by the time I get to the list of all the things I'm thankful for, my mood is lifted and the anxiety would have gone down and whatever it is I'm stressing over. And then I read my journals as well. I have some parts where I would write, I call them portals, because it feels very much like I'm getting a glimpse into a realm that is real, but not physical, right? Like I'm getting a glimpse into the real realm, and between fact and spiritual reality. And I'm dealing with fact, and fact is temporal, fact is expiring, fact will pass away. But the spirit realm, and the Bible talks a lot about the spirit, the soul, and the body. The spirit realm is the real realm. And that realm is always perfect, and it's always true, and it's always complete. Whereas this realm where we see physical things, everything physical is going to pass away. As a matter of fact, I like to say that we're living in the past, because everything that exists today, once upon a time was invisible, and it was just a thought in the mind of somebody, or it was a thought in the mind of God. And so we can rely fully on the physical realm and call it the be all and end all, so that when things are going wrong for us, we think that the entirety of our lives are being destroyed. But that's not true. It's just the physical. It's just things that are passing away anyway. And so I go back into my journal and I read some of these things that I've written. I have a note called "In Case You're Discouraged." And in case you're discouraged, I've got one particular note I go back to over and over. And I remember writing that maybe about 10 years ago, when in the middle of all of my challenges of the business and life and everything, I suddenly got this knowing that everything was going to be fine. I'm sure you have moments like that when you're just on top of the world, and unfortunately they don't last long. But I also had the sense to know that I wasn't going to feel like this the following day. So in that moment, I quickly wrote, everything is fine. everything is going to be okay. The dreams you have are going to happen. You will feel discouraged. And I want you to know, Toks, that when you come back to this note 2 days from now, 4 weeks from now, and you're feeling discouraged, I don't want you to think that this was a fluke. And I don't want you to think that you didn't have your head screwed on properly when you wrote this. Everything is going to be fine. And you have to believe this. And so I've got that there. So when I'm discouraged, because it's almost like trying to bottle up a feeling, which I wish that were possible. But I put as much positive words inside that note as I could muster. And I said, the dreams you had, and I listed the dreams, it's all going to happen. There is no doubt about it. It's going to happen. And everything you need to make it happen is already in you. There are days you're not going to feel that it's in you. There are days you're not going to have any evidence that you can do it, but trust that you can. Those days are smokescreen days. This is reality. So that's what one of the tools that I use. And then obviously as well as a Christian, I pray. Sometimes I just, pray and I cry out to God. I throw a tantrum or two, and, or I read the Bible and the Bible, it's really now.
I did that this morning.
Did you?
I just did that this morning. I'm crying. I'm like, God help me.
Yeah. And I use an app called YouVersion. You can Google, I don't know, you can type in any word, and then all of the verses that have to do with that word will come up. So if I'm dealing with fear, exactly. I would type in fear and all the verses, and there are actually 365 instances of do not be afraid in the Bible, one for each day of the year. So I would read those and take it in and just like, what I'm reading is truth. What I'm feeling is a lie, or what I'm reading is truth. So that's just some of the tools that I would use.
I was a guest storyteller at it's called Free Spiritual Community here in Denver. They kind of merged recovery, like 12-step recovery with scripture and stuff like that. So it's kind of like church, but it's more recovery-based church. Anyway, he talked about that, how that phrase, be not afraid, do not fear, in various forms. God's saying the same thing 365 times. And what he said was, it's not telling us not to feel afraid, because we're going to feel afraid, right? We're human beings. He's telling us, the Spirit's telling us, don't let that drive your behavior, right? You could acknowledge you're feeling fear. I don't think that we would be human without it, or anger, or all these other quote unquote negative emotions. But not to allow that fear to then incapacitate us and hold us down and keep us small, but to feel it and then do the work, the journaling, throwing the tantrum, doing whatever we got to do. And then we move out of it. So I wanted to ask, when you said everything's going to be fine, what is your definition of fine?
For me, fine is being at peace. I just want to be at peace. Someone asked me a question years ago, and he said, what do you really want out of life? And I said, I want to be at peace. And he said, that's not an answer. Everyone wants to be at peace. And I said, no, some people want money. Some people want different things. But for me, I want the minimum state of my being is peace. I just want to be at peace, and I just want to be filled with joy. And if I've got peace and joy, then I will see clearly enough to know that I can manifest anything that I desire. But when there is no peace, like today, for example, when I was dealing with some anxiety and fear, I said to myself, you know that fear cannot thrive where there is movement. So you've got to move. You've got to take that step forward rather than waiting. Because I was waiting, and I was praying, and I was crying, and I was hoping, and I would wait again, and I couldn't get much done. And you see why that note to self was necessary was because I knew that days like this will come when the head knowledge is not going to be enough to move me forward. So in a time like this, I just needed just one truth. And the truth I needed in that moment was, remember that fear paralyzes you. Remember that when you're afraid, you don't move. And remember that when the fear is gone, you regret the time that has left and that you wasted. So let's not be in a state of regret tomorrow. Let's be productive. Let's remember that everything's going to be fine. And so for me, fine is just peace. I just want to be in a state of peace. I love being on stage. I love public speaking. I love things like this, having conversations with wonderful minds like yours. And I love writing. And if my whole life was public speaking and writing and chatting with Ginny and Amanda, then I'm good.
I'm so grateful to have you here today, Toks. I really needed this
Seriously.
conversation. You don't even know.
Right?
Yeah. This is really good stuff.
I think one of the coolest things that just dawned on me, and I'm sure you're fully aware of this, but in hearing you talk about that note that you wrote to yourself, like a lightning bolt, to me, I hear that and it sounds so evident that that was your higher self. That was your part that is right in the presence of God all the time. And for you to be able to open up that there was this part of you talking to you, and saying, Toks, remember that your higher self wrote this message for you, and that our higher selves are the ones that are in God's presence all the time without the rest of all this density.
Right.
So to know, like that was like your higher self and God all at once being like here. And for you to be able to do that reminds me, we all have the ability to do that when we can sit still long enough, find that balance of, as you said, and when you're talking about fear being a paralyzer, it stops me dead in my tracks and often. And to hear, you'll have to tell me again. I really wish I had something to write it down with. But what did you say about fear you said something about fear.
Anything that's left out of fear can't grow. Is it that?
Yes.
Is it that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Say it again.
About the movement.
Yes,
About
the
movement
movement
too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us again.
Anything birthed out of fear can't grow. So when you're inspired to do something, you can trust your inspiration. You can trust what's coming from your spirit. But when fear is the one driving your decision making, and you're actually creating things from fear and making decisions out of fear, know that it's not going to have the life that it should have. And it would eventually fizzle out. And the other one was, what was the other one?
It was about action. Yeah, about action and fear being paralyzing. Tell us that, because that was beautiful.
Movement drives away fear. When I say movement, even the physical movement of getting on the treadmill, going for a run, that sort of thing, it drives away fear. When you have a vision board, like I'm in the process of creating a new vision board. I haven't done one in a long time and I'm doing one now. So when you have a vision board and you have the pictures of the life that you want and everything that you want on there, one of the benefits of it is that even when you don't feel like it, the picture is informing your mind of the life that is really yours. Because I see the vision board as your real life. Everything you're doing is leading you to become the person on that board. So whatever it is, even if you've got exercise on your vision board and you're dealing with fear, you wake up, you're anxious, you're fearful, but then you go and do some exercise, that's going to drive that fear away. It may not completely obliterate it depending on the intensity of what you're dealing with, but it would drive it away. I use business, for example. So this year I, second time in 12 months, had to say bye-bye to my marketing team. This year has been I've had an interesting start to the year. But then because I don't have a marketing team, whenever I'm trying to do something as small as post on social media, I feel paralyzed because I'm like, goodness, I mean, what's one post do in the grand scheme of things? And I don't do it. And when I don't do it, then it piles on and it makes me feel worse. And then I'm adding to the things that I want to do and I haven't done and I feel like I can't do it. And it starts to snowball. But when I do one thing, the fear just retreats and it gives you enough breathing space to do more. And then you do the next thing. It goes further back and you do the next thing. So the antidote to fear is movement.
I totally agree. I'm a runner. And this morning I was thrown off my schedule because we have a snowstorm. My kids were in a 90-minute delay for school and it kind of threw me all off. And I probably could have gotten a half an hour in before our show. Then I got to take a shower and do my hair and, the whole bit. So I kind of talked myself out of it. And maybe if I could have just gone on that treadmill and walked for 20 minutes and I probably would have felt better, but I go through these moments where like I kind of just keep myself in this space until I just can't take it anymore. And I really would like to, and I don't do that all the time. The new year is not getting off when you said, you know, your new year is actually a little troublesome to start. No,
For all of
Jimmy
us.
too. It's
All of us.
not getting off on a great foot. I'll tell you that.
It's all growth.
But yes, when I do that, when I do run, the endorphins, something happens that takes over, and that fear chemical subsides, endorphins, and I get that jolt of I can do it. I can do it. Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Well,
it's amazing, and I feel like so many people are going to be able to benefit from hearing it, and the way that you deliver that message, to me anyway. It's simple, yet it's not. It's probably the most beautiful way that I've had someone explain things about myself that I don't always understand.
You are a wonderful speaker, Toks. Like, you will end up writing and speaking. You are a natural, and you are born for this. So I'm really happy for you for the TED Talk, and everybody go check out the TED Talk.
Thank you.
Let's tell everyone where to find that while we're on that. Good point, Amanda. Where can everyone find your TED Talk?
It is on TED on YouTube. So if you just do a search for The Superpower of Authentic Storytelling, that's the title. And if you do a search for that, also for my name on YouTube, it will come up. That's another thing as well I do, which is, and I don't remember if we talked about this on Living Inside Out, but is building your bank of evidence. And you guys have just given me something to take away. And you saying that I'm a fantastic speaker is a piece of gold that I receive and I hold on to, and is encouraging me even now as we speak, because I know that a time's going to come when I'm going to doubt, and I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I should be doing this. And I'm going to remember what Ginny and Amanda said. And I'm like, no, they said, I don't care. So they said that I was a fantastic speaker.
They said it, so it's real.
It's real, right?
It's real. It is. Sometimes we just need that. Sometimes we need that. That's what we're here for, right? We need to give each other that moral support, and just let each other know that, I might doubt myself, but you don't. And that sometimes is what we need to keep us going when we're not operating at that, running that 6.0 on the treadmill. We're not doing that. Sometimes we just need that.
When the ripple can kind of like reflect back to you, because just by your taking action, like you said, right? Here you are sharing these things with us. It starts here in this pond, but I may be a ripple way far out, but to hear back from that ripple, like, listen, I was impacted by the fact that you had that courage to step into action. And the way you were explaining, you have one thing that you didn't do, and then it's the next thing and the next, and all of a sudden it's compiling. That is a massive challenge for me in this lifetime, and something that I don't always have answers to, because I get paralyzed, exactly like you explained. So for me to hear that, that's gold for me, right?
So I wanted to ask you before we go, what did you say before, the building your bank of evidence?
Exactly. I want to hear that too.
Talk about that a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. So all around us, we have evidence for good and for bad. Whatever it is you are hoping for, whatever it is you believe, whatever it is you suspect, whatever it is you fear, around you, there's going to be evidence that that thing is real. So you've got to train your mind and your eyes to only search for evidence that supports your dream and your goals and your vision and the life that you want. So an example, when I was opening my boutique, so we're on the Kings Road in Chelsea, which is a very high-end area, high rent and so on. And so before I opened it, as I was working the path towards it, I was petrified. And I thought, what if I don't make enough money? What if I'm not able to pay the rent? What if no one buys? And I was on the bus going back home one day. I had gone to the store to maybe sort out the painting or pay someone, or I can't remember what it was. I'm on the bus going back and trying to convince myself that it's going to work. And the bus went past a sock shop, that I can't remember the name of the shop. I think it was Happy Sock or something. And they sold socks on Kings Road in Chelsea. And I thought, if they can sell socks and pay their rent, surely I could sell furniture and pay my rent. So that was my bank of evidence. Another day I went to Harrods. Harrods is there is only one Harrods in the world, famous luxury department store. And I'm walking through, went to the children's section, went to the baby section, and I wanted to see their baby furniture. And I was only doing it because I wanted to convince myself that I could do it. I wanted to see in person what they had. I wanted to analyze the type of furniture. And I get there and I wasn't thoroughly impressed with what they sold. And I knew that what we had was nicer. So I thought, I can definitely do this. That was my bank of evidence. On my way back out, I see a dress for a young girl, for a girl's dress in the children's clothing section. Get this, £62,000. That's like $70,000, $80,000 for a dress for a child with gold leaf threading.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And I just stood there staring at this dress, taking pictures, staring at it, saying, there are people that will pay 62 grand for a dress. Surely they would pay 2 grand for a piece of furniture.
That's right.
Yeah, that was a bank of evidence. That was part of my bank of evidence. There was another time. And so when I was finally moving into the shop, I was renting an office not far from my house, but I had a lot of stuff there, like shelving and desks and everything. And the moving company that is also the same guy who used to help deliver furniture and assemble in our clients' homes. And I said to him, I need you to help me move. And he comes and he moves all the stuff. And it took him 3 trips to deliver all of my stuff to the shop. And when I was done, I said, yeah, just send me the invoice. And he goes, your invoice is 0 because I'm so happy for you.
Wow.
Amazing.
He goes, no, your invoice is 0. For me, that was evidence that I was doing the right thing. So your bank of...
that gave me chills. I love that.
Me too.
I love that.
It's a collection of events and sometimes it's just somebody telling, like you saying to me, you're a great speaker. That's going in I'm writing that down tonight. Like that's the way you... And so you just write them down. You write down instances when things worked out for you, when even your own feeling, knowing when the moments when you were sure you were supposed to be doing this. A friend coming and giving you a pat on the back and saying, well done. I saw that piece that you created or something you said really blessed me. And maybe even when you said it, you were in a state of doubt and not even sure of what you were saying, but then it gave life to somebody else, which gives evidence that you have life within you to give to people and you're a blessing to people. And if you're so anyone listening who might be dealing with insecurities and uncertainty about who they are or what they're capable of doing, keep an eye open for evidence that you are actually who you are supposed to be. And that those little nagging doubts and questions and lies are just lies. They're not really who you are. Read it whenever you're feeling discouraged and you're uncertain. Just pull it out and just read it. And that always
I
helps.
love this so much. I did. So, of course, all roads lead to Pearl Jam for me. Pearl Jam is just my band. They're actually touring soon. Waiting to hear about dates. Anyway, there's a line in my favorite Pearl Jam song. The song is called Unthought Known. And it says, look for love in evidence that you're worth keeping. And I just love that. I love that. And that speaks to me so much because I go through a lot of not self-doubt. It's not self-doubt, but I've suffered from abandonment issues. I have some emotional abandonment issues from childhood and stuff like that. So look for love and evidence that you're worth keeping.
Wow.
You know, like like in the evidence, I can feel the love and know that I am worth keeping, that I'm wanted, that I'm loved, that I'm worthy, all that kind of stuff. So I love you, Toks. I've loved your show. I think really probably one of our best ones because you really are you're bringing it, girlfriend. So thank you for being here.
I already know it's going to be for several people and the people that listen, but specifically, and I'm sure Amanda could say the same thing, but I can't, me sitting here, like, put this in your evidence as well. Like, I literally heard things today. I haven't been able to, not much has penetrated. And I don't get like that often, but when I go through those seasons, I'm very capable of building up a pretty good defense mechanism and wall. And it doesn't happen often, but when it does, boy, it's there and it is strong. And I haven't had a lot that just immediately has seeped in and penetrated into my soul and made sense to me in at least the last 4 weeks. And everything you've said today has. Everything you've said today has, without even trying. So thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, it's going to help a lot of people.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time. Any last parting bit of wisdom and beauty you'd like to leave with us?
I mean, just writing, journaling I know it comes easy to me and it doesn't come easy to everyone, but when you're journaling, you're not writing for anybody but yourself. And you don't even have to go back and read it. But the practice of actually writing is very empowering. So I recommend writing. Listen to the TED Talk. I hope it encourages you. And then write your rockstar story. Your rockstar story is the story of your life with its twists and turns, but told from the viewpoint of a winner. So everyone's got one. Everyone's had suffering in their lives. Everyone's got joys, So write your rockstar story and read it frequently to remind yourself of who you really are.
I love it. And where can our listeners find you, Toks? Where would you like them to search for you?
Sure. So I'm on, my web address is toksaruoture.com. That's my first name and surname.com. Podcast is Living Inside Out with Toks. And I'm on social media, my first name and last name at Toks Aruoture. So Instagram and Facebook is where I typically hang out, but I'm also on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. And I'll put all those links, your handles and all that in the description for everybody to have. Yeah, Ginny, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
An incredibly huge thank you. And just that I'm grateful. I'm beyond grateful for both of you. I'm grateful for the way, even as much as this year I think is starting out a little challenging. Probably we're not alone in that it's meant to be this time of being a seed and rupturing through those things. And I'm just grateful that I get to be on this journey with you, Amanda, with you, Toks, and with all the rest of you out there that are connecting with us as well. I'm just really grateful for all of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Toks, for being here. We are so grateful for you. Okay, check us out again in 2 weeks. Ginny and I will be back. We're going to do a show strictly on grief. We're going to call it The Many Faces of Grief. And we're going to talk about how grief shows up in many ways other than death. So please, we hope you enjoy the show and come back and visit us in a couple of weeks. All right.
Can't wait to see
everybody.
You guys.
Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
If this podcast resonates with you and you want to dive deeper, check out my blog, Get Real, all in on love, loss, and connection at AmandaMcCoyFlanagan.com. That's McCoy with a K. You can also follow me on Instagram at Amanda McCoy Flanagan.
See you next. Until then, let that soul ride.